I've seen over the years thousands of people who may seem far from God, but when you give them the opportunity, it's amazing how many people actually want to explore God.
I don't think that humans have the ability to know.
For me, I have to see it to believe it.
I'm not saying that I'm unconvincible. I'm certainly open to whatever someone might show me, but I can't think of anything that would convince me right now.
I hope there's something else out there. It'd be fun to experience whatever God has in store next.
Simply why? I mean, why we're here? What's the point?
What is it that he has planned that makes it all worth it?
It's an opportunity to bring people together to start talking about this God that loves them, maybe for the first time, but not the last.
Have those conversations of faith. That being said, now let's talk about Christmas. Are you ready? I'm ready. I've been so ready for Christmas. I've been so excited about Christmas was coming up. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. It's just like, Christmas is here. And I'm back in Southern California where it's not freezing cold in Texas. Christmas at the beach, y'all. It's just going to be good. It's just going to be good. When I think about Christmas, I start thinking about gifts. Anybody else here start thinking about gifts when you think about Christmas? When you start thinking about gifts, do you think about gifts that are going to be maybe for you? Or do you think about gifts that are maybe going to be for someone else? If you're a for someone else person, raise your hand. Yeah, I was faking you out. And if you're a gifts for me person, if you think about what you might be getting, raise your hand. Just be honest. Okay, we own it, we own it. Gifts are an odd thing. I know that when I think about it, I want to buy someone a gift that's something that they want, not something that they need. I want to get them that something beyond their wants and get them what they need. And so I would never go to the store and buy someone a gallon of milk and wrap it up and go, Merry Christmas! Or, a dozen eggs. Here you go! Because that's a need, right? I want to think, well, what's the want that they want? What's that thing that's out there? And I remember one year as a kid, I wanted something. I wanted the brand new, super cool, best thing out there ever, the Atari 2600 video game system. It was a life-changing thing that every kid in my neighborhood wanted. Now, if you wanted that, or you had a child in your life or someone in your life that wanted that, or if you remember that, please raise your hand. Do you remember the Atari 2600? Okay. Nintendo 64, that too. The Atari 2600 had one joystick, one button, not like 42,000 buttons like the video games of today. You leaned it forward and you made the tank go. It was really awesome. I wanted it so bad. I left notes under my parents' pillows. I took pictures of the catalogs, ripped it out, circled it, put it in my dad's wallet. I did everything to make sure that I could get what I wanted. And so when Christmas came around, that Christmas tree was stuffed with gifts for me and my brother and for the rest of the family. It was just gorgeous. A full Christmas tree is a beautiful, beautiful thing. Especially when all of your hopes and dreams and desires of a 7 to 10-year-old kid live right underneath that tree. It's coming. All right, how many of y'all cheated and tried to figure out what Christmas presents you got ahead of time? Again, honest, we are all sinners here. I got my dad's high-powered flashlight, and I put it right up against the packages, and if it was a shiny package, you could kind of see a little bit through it and figure it out. And I was like, but my mom got good at wrapping. She made everything look really good. Super, super beautiful wrapping. Everything looks perfect. And so when Christmas comes around, we're opening presents. And I open my first present, and I just shred it like a kid should. And I peel open the top of the box, and it's socks. Socks, people! So I took I looked at my mom, I was like, and I took him and I threw him back, and I waited for my next gift to come around. And my next gift, it was again a beautiful box. This time I was careful. I was going to shake it so my hopes would be like in the right category. And it was heavy, it was dense, but it didn't feel like, a sweater or anything else like that, something horrible for a 10-year-old boy. And so I ripped it open, pulled open the box, and it was underwear. Oh. And as I went through my entire Christmas tree, my mom had purchased for me a really nice outfit. So I picked one thing at a time. There's your pants, there's your shirt, there's your sweater, there's your underwear, there's your socks. And then there were no more presents. No Atari 2600. So sad. I could hear the screams of joy from my neighbors when their kids had gotten the Atari. Atari! Underwear. Just so I can know, how many of you all have ever had something big that you wanted for Christmas and you asked your parents for it? I think all of us at one point did that, right? Raise your hand if that was you. Okay? Keep your hands raised up if you got that big thing that you wanted for your family. Okay, keep your hands up. Be proud, because I hate you. I mean, not really, but yeah, no. And if you were that kid like me that wanted but was disappointed on Christmas morning, just own it. Just own it. It's a mark. We feel it. We carry it with us forever. Christmas has a little bitterness to it. Because there's nothing sadder than seeing the kids sit by the Christmas tree and just stare, just wishing another gift would magically show up. See, my mom was doing this thing that I didn't know was important because we were pretty poor. And so she was giving me what I needed more than what I wanted. Think about that. Sometimes God operates by giving us what we need before he gives us what we want. God will often give us what we need way before he gives us what we want. And I know there are kids in this room right now going, oh, Mom, Dad, please don't give me socks and underwear. Please don't give me socks and underwear. But there's value to getting what you need. Because as we start, if there's only one thing you remember, I want you to remember this. Jesus is not the gift that the people wanted. He's the unexpected gift that we all needed. Jesus is not the gift that the people wanted. He's the unexpected gift that we all need. So, this first Christmas, here, I want you to understand that we have these expectations about Christmas. Most of us want Christmas to be this perfect family event, and we've sanitized the Christmas story so it looks perfect, it looks clean. And so there's 4 tellings of the story, and you have the telling of story, the Christmas story, the Gospel of Matthew, and Matthew's convinced of trying to make us understand Jesus as the Messiah. He wants us to get that. He gets us as he tells the whole story. Then you have the Gospel account of Mark, and Mark's invested in the actions of Jesus, the things that Jesus did, how Jesus went to place to place, miracle after miracle after miracle, healing after healing after healing. That's what Mark is doing. It's just like Jesus is on the move all the time. Luke is giving us a historical account. As it starts out at the very beginning, this took place while Quirinius was governor, right? He's giving us a time and a place, and Luke's giving us a detailed historical account of what goes on. Matthew starts out with his lineage. He starts out saying, this is who he comes from. He's obviously the Messiah. Mark says, these are the things he's done. He's obviously the Messiah. Luke says, here's the history of it. He's obviously the Messiah. But John just says, he's the Messiah. Because the Gospel of John opens with, in the beginning was the Word. And the Word was with God, and the Word was God. John 1:1. No lineage, no birth story, no action-packed accounts. And when John writes, and he says, in the beginning was the Word, in the text, the word is logos. This is all John 1. The text, the word is logos. This is one of those super important words it's an important word. It's an important word in theology because word, logos, is the expression or declaration of a thought. So in the beginning was the expression of God. In the beginning, the expression of God, or the declaration of God, was there. See, you can take expression or declaration and you can replace word with it. You can replace the word logos with it. And what John's getting at is, just as he's starting out the story, is he's saying, in the beginning, Jesus is the expression of God. Jesus is the declaration of God. Jesus is the manifestation of God. The Logos was Theos. The Word is and was and will be forever God. He's showing his audience, his readers, that Jesus is God. And he's making no qualms about it. His words harken back all the way to the Genesis account. You all know the Genesis account. In the beginning, God created. In the beginning, John saying, Jesus was there. And it would have been a big deal, right? Jesus' birth could have and should have been a big deal. But when we think about everything that happened, it kind of seems like the story goes off the rails, because John says in the beginning was the Word, but as you read the story, you see the story of a young woman that's pregnant by God, and then all of a sudden almost suffers a divorce, and all of a sudden has to travel many miles in her 9th month of pregnancy via a donkey, possibly on a cart, to end up in a town where there's no place for them to stay. I mean, God could have emailed ahead. God could have used some theological radio. God could have sent a messenger pigeon to make sure that it all happened, but it just seems like it's not well put together. In the beginning was the Word, and there's this plan, and then you look at the story, it doesn't seem like there's much of a plan in here at all. It seems as if it's just being barely held together by a thread. And then in Luke chapter 2, the writer says this, and she gave birth to her firstborn son, and she wrapped him in cloths and placed him in a manger. Now I know that many of us, when we think about that scene, we see a nativity. We see this beautiful nativity, but I want to repaint the scene. Remember, it's a stable, it's a cave. There were animals in there. There was animal excrement there. When they traveled at her 9th month of pregnancy. They arrived in Bethlehem. What happens that night? She gives birth. Was she comfortable that day? Was Joseph comfortable that day? No. You're going to find your place to stay, because something's about to happen. And there was a lot of tension. There was a lot going on. And once they have the child, remember that they're in a stable. Where that song says, no crying the baby Jesus makes. I mean, there was probably a sheep like right there staring at him. He probably cried. And it says, she wrapped him in bands of cloths. Again, I like to see this in the sanitized version, where it's this beautiful, beautiful swaddling of the child. But in all reality, it was probably dirty rags. It was whatever they could find. Maybe part of a garment that they had to tear up just to protect the child. And then they placed him in a manger. Again, that's another pretty word for feeding trough. And again, I think about this story, and the story itself it seems to be coming apart at the seams, because I'm asking God, if this is your story of a Savior King that's coming for us, it just seems messy. It seems all wrong. No room in the inn, Herod trying to kill him. But I think that God is giving us an unexpected gift here. An unexpected gift. Because Jesus shows up in this way, and he can now identify with our struggles. Jesus shows up unexpectedly in this way so that he can identify with our struggles. Church, if you're with me, say I am. Thank you. Because think about this. I know there are people that say, I can't hang out with Jesus, I can't figure out Jesus because, and they rattle off their list, and like they're in such a place of poverty, and that Jesus doesn't know poverty. Let me tell you, Jesus knows poverty. born of the poorest of poor. His family couldn't afford to make an offering, the correct offering for him, so they had to create the substitute offering for the gift. Instead of offering a lamb for this child as an act of atonement, they had to offer the cheapest 2 turtle doves, pigeons. I think it's hilarious and shocking that the Lamb who takes away the sins of the world his family couldn't even afford a lamb to offer for him. People tell me that it's just too difficult to imagine a God. Too many bad things have happened to me. That I've suffered too much injustice for Jesus to really be real. And then I think about this. Well, Jesus suffered injustice. He knows what it's like to be unfairly tried. He knows what it's like to have the system against him. The unexpected gift of Jesus is that he experiences suffering with us. His gift in his coming is a sacrifice for us. I mean, again, people don't get it, right? People don't understand. They try to find reasons to not understand. And I want you to know that Jesus understands. He knows. He came into our mess. He came into our lives. He came into our world dirty, messy, sacrificed. And he came for you and he came for me. He understands your hurts. He understands your pains. See, again, I think we expect Christmas to be this royal extravaganza, but God wanted it, and I think he still wants it to be, if we're willing today to begin looking with new eyes, to see that Christmas is an example of God being for us, and God being humbly and sacrificial for you and for me and for your neighborhoods. Even his birth teaches this humility. See, when you start looking at the manger differently, when you start looking at the creche differently, when you start seeing the whole story differently, you begin to have these new eyes and you recognize that it was a great sacrifice that God gave. And his whole life, that Jesus' whole life, was a life that was lived for you, that was lived for me. It was the greatest gift ever. And his life teaches us that we too can follow. His life teaches us that we too can humbly sacrifice of ourselves, of our time, of our gifts. We move from being all about me to being in the manger and recognizing that it was always all for me. See, he moves us from what we want under this tree to what we need in this life. And we needed a Savior that would sacrifice for us. We needed a Savior who would be not just the king who removed the Romans, not just the king who would change the world politically. We needed a Savior king who would change our life and restore us in right relationship with our Father. Jesus is the unexpected gift that changes the world. And we are unexpectedly gifted when we see the manger through new eyes. Do you all pray with me?